When it comes to getting back to public duties, and I'm really glad that you asked this question, John, because I think it is important that we manage expectations.
The chief executive of the London clinic where the Princess of Wales was treated for abdominal surgery has said there's no place for hospital staff who breach the trust of patients. That's after a member of staff attempted to access the Princess's medical records. Hospital staff are under investigation into the breach. The Prime Minister's press secretary said everyone in public life has a right to privacy. Joined now by Victoria Arbiter, the royal correspondent. Welcome, Victoria.
Good evening to you, John.
Victoria, this is an embarrassing breach, isn't it?
It's a horrendously embarrassing breach, and it's a troubling breach as well, John. As you rightly pointed out, everybody, it doesn't matter who they are, what their status is, what their position is, they have a right to privacy. And really, we just have to harken back to 2012 to understand really the severity of this situation. You may remember then when she was then Duchess of Cambridge, was being treated at the King Edward VII Hospital for an acute form of morning sickness, hyperemesis gravidarum. Two Australian DJs called the hospital. They were carrying out a prank. They managed to get put through to the nurse that was on the princess's ward. She subsequently took her own life as a result of that prank. So messing around with hospitals, messing around with people's private medical information, trying to access hospital data systems, it really is very troubling indeed.
And Victoria, is there any clue as to the motive for this intrusion, as to whether it was just pure nosiness, was it with a view to leaking or anything of that kind? Are we simply clueless about that?
John, I think this is a really interesting question. And yes, to answer your question at this point, we are clueless as to the motives. But I think there are a couple of theories really that are at the forefront at the moment. One of which, exactly what you just said, just sheer nosiness. There has been absolute hysteria on a daily basis for what feels like weeks now related to the Princess of Wales, partly because she opted that she wanted to keep the details related to her surgery private. So yes, there's an element of nosiness, but there's a slightly more sinister element too, which is the suggestion that perhaps they were thinking that there could be a big payday here. Now, the British press, given the guidelines and regulations that are in place, certainly post Levinson, there's absolutely no way any newspaper or any radio station, television network in the UK would publish any kind of medical information that was obtained in such a fashion. It is regulated for a reason, but that's not to say someone couldn't sell it to the highest bidder somewhere else around the world, which would then force the British public, they would report on it. It has been said in X country that this is what was in the medical records. So it's insidious.
Yeah, I mean, there may not at this point, Victoria, be an answer to this question, but as far as you can tell, do the hospital believe they may be able to detect the snooper here, and whether by some sort of electronic trail or by whatever means? Is it going to be possible? Do they think they can do it?
Well, I think so, John. And actually, right before I joined you, I got an alert to say that there are 3 members of staff at the London clinic that are currently under investigation. So that does suggest that they have been able to hone in on exactly who is responsible. Now, at this point, we're talking about allegations. No evidence has been presented, certainly in the public arena as yet. But it's good to know that 3 people are being investigated, because that does indicate that they are able to deduce who it is, who is responsible, and that they can help them hold them accountable accordingly.
Yeah, that is interesting, Victoria. We probably should repeat that the fact that 3 names are being looked at doesn't mean that they can be described as the culprits at this point in any way. But interesting that has come to light. Now, tell me, Victoria, what about the news of a plan for the princess to re-enter the public gaze, as it were? Could you just tell us more about that?
Yes, well, we do know that there is a soft plan in the works, and I think soft because everything depends really on how the princess is feeling as and when we get nearer to the date that she returns to her public duties. There's been a lot of talk about her perhaps joining the royal family for their annual walk to Easter service on Easter Sunday. Of course, it would be wonderful to see her in that capacity. She lives in Windsor. The service will be held at St George's Chapel. So that seems like a fitting time for us to sort of see her introduced in terms of the public arena once again. When it comes to getting back to public duties, and I'm really glad that you asked this question, John, because I think it is important that we manage expectations. Kensington Palace told us in January that she would be back to work after Easter. A lot of people are assuming that that means on Easter Monday, she's suddenly going to be back out, cutting ribbons, doing engagements, planting trees and the likes. But when we look at how William and Kate have conducted their royal life alongside their private life, they do typically typically take the children's holidays off. So I wouldn't expect to see the princess back out on the royal beach much before April 17th.
Mm.
When she is, and I would imagine that people are advising her of this, the attention is going to be off the charts. So I wouldn't be surprised if she used that first engagement back to highlight her work with the early years project, certainly something that is very meaningful for her because she knows it's
Mm.
going to be front page news.
I wonder, Victoria, how do you read the mood at Kensington Palace and in the royal household? I mean, they must be way beyond frustrated.
Hugely so. It's interesting, John. Back in 2017, Prince William said, often things will get said about you and you want to fight back, but there's no point because if you try to fight back, all it does is further fan the flames. It makes the story bigger and the speculation continues. But I think really both Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace are facing a very different beast in this modern age, and that being social media. In the absence of any
Mm.
actual news, people just make it up.
Yes.
And it's so often the case that when the truth of the matter is just considered too dull to possibly be interesting or even correct, people just then they go down this rabbit hole, and these conspiracy theories are able to spiral out of control. She's one of the most famous women in the world, certainly one of the most photographed, one of the most beloved, and I think people have really been aware of this absence. And so with no news, with this sort of significant void in terms of news related to the Princess of Wales, that's why this conspiracy
Yeah.
theory has escalated. And on this side of the pond, it has reached truly hysterical
Yeah.
proportions.
Yeah.
I've been stunned.
And I think on the other side in America as well. I mean, we're used to the internet giving us I don't know, viral chatter beyond belief. This is just redefined ridiculous.
I think that's exactly the phrase. In mainstream media here, celebrities here, there's been a lot of clout chasing, very famous celebrities sort of knowing that if they say Kate Middleton, that might get them hits and attention online. So they're using it to kind of boost their own profile. But I've been alarmed with mainstream media, and I'm talking like the morning shows, magazines that have huge readership, using words like disappeared, missing. The Princess of Wales is not missing, nor has she disappeared. We know exactly where she is. But those kinds of words can be quite dangerous because it encourages people to go with this narrative that something insidious and sordid and sinister and terrible has happened to her. Then they want to try and find the culprit. And unfortunately, in this era of misinformation and indeed disinformation, people are inclined to believe what they see on the internet. They don't do their own research. And that's why we are sort of in this situation that is truly horrific. I think there's going to be a lot of people who look back and perhaps reflect on the role they played in it. And I hope they have a few regrets.